there is an interview posted on the British boxing section of the Boxing News 24 forum, which is an interview with Ronnie Davis. Very, very interesting, some of the comments made in it. First and foremost, just to touch on this because I have mentioned it previously in other videos, Ronnie Davis says there's no issue about the stop talking comment. Chris is just very sort of his own boss, single-minded, focused, etc. There's no plans to change the situation in the corner, and he agrees with sort of not talking in the corner rule because he believes that only one man should be doing the job of communicating with the fighter, and the nominated individual was Chris Eubank Sr. I kind of get his point in an extent that it must be confusing when you're so fatigued between rounds if you've got three people talking to you between all angles. So I kind of agree that the one man in the ring should be doing the talking. It's obvious that they're intending to keep the corner the same going forward. Personally, I think that's a mistake, but you know, what will be will be. There was another very, very interesting quote in the interview from Ronnie Davis, which I'll read out in a minute. The interviewer starts talking about Eubank Jr.'s weight, whether or not, you know, it's a bit difficult for him to make middleweight. Ronnie Davis came out with the following quote. He was talking about how Eubank had made weight previously, and he said, "There's a difference when you're going 12 rounds. He made the weight easy enough. It's whether he did it right when he put the weight back on after the weigh-in. I don't know, because he insists on doing his own thing, and that concerns me." He went on to say, "We spoke this morning, and he promised he had done it right." So just to reiterate, Ronnie Davis is saying that there's a difference about making a weight when you're going 12 rounds. The Eubank did make the weight, but it's whether Eubank made the weight correctly and how he put the weight back on after the weigh-in. Ronnie Davis doesn't know because Eubank Jr. insists on doing his own thing. Now, I was at the weigh-in. Eubank Jr. did look in spectacular physical condition. He looked large for the weight. For me, there are two worries there. The first worry, and this is particular worry if we consider that for the majority of his career, Eubank has fought in catchweight style fights over the middleweight limit, which I guess is common for a prospect, so yeah. But the first thing is that Ronnie Davis, a very respected, experienced trainer, has concerns over how Eubank is doing the weight. Maybe somebody from who knows a bit more about me can clarify this in the comments section, but is there a suggestion there of dehydrating extensively to make the weight when Ronnie Davis refers to if he puts weight back on in the right way? That's concern number one. Concern number two is that Ronnie Davis has no involvement in this process, which is perhaps a bigger concern. Davis says, "I don't really know because he insists on doing his own thing, and that concerns me." In an earlier comment in the interview, Davis said, "I've got my own views about what's gone wrong. I think he's a huge middleweight. I don't know. Maybe he should be at super middleweight. Whether it was the last pound or two he lost that took the edge away from him, I don't know." So there are some concerns here. You've got a very, very experienced boxing man like Ronnie Davis saying he's not sure if middleweight is the right weight for Chris Eubank Jr. Saying he thinks taking off that weight may well have lost Eubank Jr. his edge. He's saying that Chris Eubank Jr. didn't take off that weight or put that weight on after the weigh-in in the best way. And most worryingly, despite having these concerns that Eubank may not be right for middleweight, that Eubank may not be doing the weight correctly, that it may be losing Eubank his edge, despite having all these concerns, Ronnie Davis, doesn't have an input, because Chris Eubank Jr. insists on doing it his own way. Now, if Ronnie Davis is happy to be told to stop talking, if he's happy to be told by his fighter to stop talking between rounds, fair enough. I think it's disrespectful. I don't like it. But Ronnie Davis has been in the business a long time. If he's happy to do that, fine. That's a personal thing between two grown men. But from a fighting perspective, if you've got someone like Ronnie Davis with serious concerns about how you're making the weight, if you're fighting in the right weight division, and if it's actually affecting you, losing you your edge, costing you, then it's a serious concern. Ronnie Davis seems slightly confused about how Eubank let the earlier rounds go. He said he wasn't himself. He said he's worried that extra weight cost Eubank his edge. He's worried that Eubank did the weight the wrong way. Surely, this feedback needs to be taken on board. Look, I was Team Billy Joe all the way leading up to this fight, but Eubank has shown he's got some capability, some attributes. He did well. Whether I'm Team Saunders or whatever, I like to see fighters perform to their best. And there's clearly more to come from Eubank. He could clearly be a decent fighter. A really decent fighter. But all this single-minded stuff, all this being your own boss stuff, is all well and good. But this is a guy whose best win is over Bradley Price. This is a guy who's just lost in a big fight. How can you ignore? And it's not even ignoring the advice of someone like Ronnie Davis. It's not even allowing his input. It's shutting him down in the corner when he's trying to speak. It's not allowing his sort of comment and his sort of input into making the weight. It's not allowing his input into putting the weight back on after a weigh-in. This is a guy who must have dealt with so many fighters with weight issues over the years. He must have dealt with so many fighters cutting weight, so many fighters trying to put weight back on, so many fighters contemplating which division they should be in. And yet, Eubank Jr., according to Ronnie Davis on this interview, which is on the Boxing News 24 forum, you know, it beggars belief that Ronnie Davis is kept apart from how Eubank is managing his weight. It's such a vital thing, and it's something that Eubank Jr. hasn't got experience on, because he hasn't been in many fights where they've stuck to a rigid middleweight weight limit. Perhaps Ronnie Davis is right. Perhaps Eubank Jr. would be better as a super middleweight. Perhaps he would have more of an edge if he wasn't cutting those last few pounds. Or perhaps if they let Ronnie Davis's experience and expertise into the fray, he could make the weight limit, but he could do it properly. He could do it without dehydrating. He could put the weight back on properly, and perhaps he could come in at the right weight without losing the edge. I'm not sure. I'm not close enough to make an opinion on that. I find it staggering, some of the admissions Ronnie Davis makes in this interview. I find it staggering he's happy to accept being disrespected like that in the middle of in the middle of a fight. And I find it staggering to hear that he's kept away from discussions about weights. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching.